Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out. Can it pick the MCU up from its current slump? Let's find out. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, and is directed by James Gunn. What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2023 review, brand new MCU movie, brand new Guardians of the Galaxy movie. How's that for you? Looking forward to diving into this one. And first off, this will be a spoiler-free review. Second thing, I have never done an MCU ranking. That is all about to change. I'm going to rank all 32, I think it's 32 movies, including Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And also, let me just say, last couple of weeks, I have been going through and watching every one of these movies. I'm almost done. And I am so glad I did because my opinion changed on a few of these movies. Some better, some worse. And one thing I will say is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 went way up for me this time around. And I think I know the reason for that. When you do these movies in release order, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I think it's much more character driven and it's very funny, but it's kind of refreshing after you've gone through this onslaught of just action. You know, so much action. Yeah, there's big plots in a lot of these other movies too, but for the most part, Guardians steps a little bit outside of the normal MCU formula. And it really sends it home in the comedy department. But James Gunn comedy is different than normal MCU comedy, in my opinion. I am so glad I did that because I have a feeling if I didn't do that, then I might not have liked Guardians Volume 3 as much as I do. And I actually kind of love this movie. I saw it last night. If you saw my out-of-theater reaction, you can tell I'm a little bit, it was a lot to take in. It was a lot to take in. All day, I have been just letting this movie percolate. I mean, I could have reviewed this last night and dropped it because the embargo lifted this afternoon sometime. Could have had that review out nice, got those views, but I was like, nope, I'm not gonna do that. I want to have my head completely, I guess, clear when I review this movie. And so I'm glad I just let myself, you know, think about this movie throughout the whole day because it is kind of a beast of a movie, 2.5 hours, a lot going on in the movie. And it's a James Gunn movie. It's kind of a big animal to juggle. And I say animal with no pun intended. Now also, I'm gonna be really discreet about this review. I don't even think I've even watched the trailer for this movie, but I think the less you know, the better going into this movie. Because there is one key plot point, and I'll just say the crew comes together to save a very important person, okay? I'll say that, all right? But I don't want to tell you who it is or what it is or anything like that. And you might already know. It might even show it in the trailer. But you know what? I didn't know it, and it was kind of nice, you know, and it happens at the beginning of the movie. But first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis going into this, all right? I've already told you, really, this whole movie is a mission. On the side of that mission, of course, we have our main baddie. The High Evolutionary is what he's called, but pretty much he looks like RoboCop. He has like the RoboCop type face. There's even a joke that Quill makes about him being RoboCop, you know, and a bunch of other names in this movie. And he's a lunatic, all right? He is a high caliber, high octane villain. Very loud. That does kind of factor into one of my issues with the movie. That's a small issue. We will get into that. But the Sovereign, remember the gold people from the last movie? They play a part in this movie too. Adam Warlock, who I think we saw at the end of, was it The Eternals or one of those movies? Adam Warlock showed up. And so we get to see him in full force in this movie pretty much at the beginning. I love it when they showcase just how powerful these villains can be or just characters. And Adam Warlock is a very powerful character. And there's this big showdown with him at the beginning of the movie. And it is a tough fight on the Guardians. He is going through them almost like butter. And I think this might be the most savage we've seen an adversary go against the Guardians and really almost not be able to contain him. So I love that right at the beginning of the movie, they set up just how powerful Adam Warlock is, but also it's James Gunn writing, and this character is extremely eccentric. And that just adds to the character. Will Poulter plays him. He has really been on the rise lately. I don't know if James Gunn kind of fed him the way to play this character or if he just kind of came up with it on his own. But just a very eccentric take, and I always appreciate that. A strong acting performance. This movie's filled with great performances. That is one of the big things that works about this movie. Now, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about what is so great about this. And really, at the end of the day, it's just the James Gunn-ism of the movie. Nobody, I think, today can draw out characters, especially their eccentricities, better than James Gunn. And I would even say that he can be somewhat of a polarizing director. There are some people that might not like his style of directing, but you can't deny how much this guy loves characters and just bringing out the best that can possibly be in those characters. Starting with Chris Pratt, I think this might be my favorite Star-Lord performance, because he's kind of gone through some changes. A big plot point in this is his relationship with Gamora, and if you've seen where she ends up at the end of Endgame, that definitely plays a factor into this movie, which, good transition to Gamora, Zoe Saldana. I would say this Gamora is a lot more harder-edged, very angry, and, she has a hard shell over her that she's guarding something within, Whereas she kind of let herself go in the previous movies, which I think this is genius, because when you put two characters together, two love interests together, then we don't care anymore, right? So this is an effective way to rip them apart and then try to bring them back together again, and it really works. I was kind of glued to these two characters throughout. Another character I really loved, I think more than ever, was Nebula. She's gotten a little bit of an upgrade because, Thanos pretty much tortured her, but also made her this kind of badass warrior. And then Rocket adds his own little touch to her. So she just has all these little bells and whistles that she gets to play with throughout this. And she's just a very angry, hard-edged type of character. And there's some comedy that's thrown in there, directly at her because of her attitude. Drax is just as funny as ever. I mean, I could really go down every character in this movie because there's so many great ones. Nathan Fillion is fantastic. He has a really funny moment where he's talking about he's got an idiot that works with him. And to give a quick shout out, Tony Crespo, who runs a channel called Flopbuster, definitely check it out. He really gave me the perfect antidote with why, I guess, Guardians movies, especially 2 and 3, are so effective, is because it's like the superhero hangout movie. And I had to steal that phrase from him because that's exactly what it is. It's not your normal, traditional superhero movie where you have, like you could have your origin story and then them coming into their own, or you could just have, whatever the second part of that is, and then them coming to terms with their own power and the big baddie. No, Guardians of the Galaxy it's its own flavor. The first one is the most accessible, but 2 and 3, once you step back and look at them for what they are, like he said, like a superhero hangout movie, you can kind of compare them to like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and just dialogue-heavy movies. And what if they're superheroes and they're just constantly cracking on each other, giving each other shit, but at the end of the day, their bond with each other is so strong. They love each other to death, and this movie really encapsulates that. I'll even say you have a few moments in this movie where you want to shed a tear. But really, each character, and including the new characters, have the moments to shine. Sylvester Stallone, one of my all-time favorite actors, probably my favorite actor, most inspirational person in my life. He has a little bit more time in this one than he did in the last one, and I really loved him for the small part that he did get to play. He's just a very commanding figure in this movie. The Ravagers, he's like the leader of the Ravagers, and you just believe him. Even when he goes up to Drax, you're like, Drax, you better shut your mouth. He's fucking Stallone. He's a badass. Why do you think I got my Cobra shirt on? Oh, guys, real quick, two things I forgot to mention that I definitely wanted to mention. Can't believe I didn't mention the music, because all these Guardians movies are so good because of the great like retro music that they put in them. And this one actually adds in some like 90s and even like early 2000s music, but it's still like kind of deep cut type stuff. And speaking of deep cut, there's a Faith No More song in here. I'll go ahead and say it, We Care a Lot. That's a song that I never ever thought I would hear in a movie, let alone a movie this big. And I was just like, I had chill bumps. Oh my God, they're playing Faith No More, We Care a Lot. This is before Mike Patton was in the group. Holy shit. But that was a cool moment. And then also the action scenes. I didn't really mention too many of the action scenes, but there's one particular that I loved. And it was very unique, and it was totally James Gunn. And the music tied in with it perfectly. You know, it was like they were saving this great action scene. And there's a good bit of action throughout this movie, but that particular scene where it's just pretty much all the Guardians are fighting this group of baddies, and they're just going through them, but it's the way the camera just kind of moves in and out and like around and through everything without it stopping. It was beautifully done, beautifully done. So had to mention those two things. Back to the review. Now, as far as the cons, 2.5 hour movie, and that's never a bad thing if the movie is packed full of great stuff, which this movie is. I do think they could have toned it down just a little bit in the runtime. It could have been maybe 2 and 15. But you know what? No complaints. The more Guardians, the better. I don't think any villain in the Guardians movies is going to top Ronan, you know, played by Lee Pace in the first movie. Ronan, I think, was a really great villain, and I was just reminded of that when I went through these movies recently again. This villain was kind of over the top, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, overall, guys, this movie's fantastic, super high purchase worthy. And I have a feeling that this is going to be one of my most watched, MCU movies going down the line. I just have that feeling. It's high rewatchability value. So anyway, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.